I've always wanted to buy my kids toys. I've always wanted to play with my kids. I've always wanted to have a nice home for me, my wife, and my kids. I've always wanted to have a good time with my family every weekend. I've always wanted to have a good Christmas with family and relatives. I've always wanted my country. I've always wanted to be the best person in my country. I've always wanted to prove myself as one of the best citizens. I've always wanted the best out of my kids. I've always wanted to send my kids to best schools. I've always wanted my wife to have a better job. I've always wanted my people, my Zimbabwean people, to have a good life. I've always wanted a peaceful country. I've always wanted to live with peaceful people. I've always wanted to be able to provide for my kids. I've always wanted to send my kids to school. I've always wanted to be able to provide for people who cannot have. I've always wanted to look up to people in our societies who are in better positions to look after the other people. I've always wanted to be better someone. And I've always wanted to be there when family needs me. I've always wanted the best out of Zimbabwe. And I've always wanted to live in Zimbabwe. And I've always wanted the better Zimbabwe. But this is what this government gave to us. I've always been a slave outside of my country. I've always lived outside of my country. I've always lived away of my family. I've always stayed with no money, no savings for my kids. I will never be able to send my kids to better schools. I will never be able to be the best parent because I cannot provide for my kids. I will never be able to get a better job. And I will never be able to live in Zimbabwe the time that I've lived outside of Zimbabwe. I will never regain this time. I will never be next to my family. I will never be the best person in my family because I was forced to go outside of my country. I was forced to live outside of Zimbabwe. This government took 20 years of my life. This government here took 20 years of this generation's life. This government here made people who passed in school not to be in school. This government here has limited people of their potential. This government here have made innocent kids to be poor in their life. This government have made every one of us to live outside of Zimbabwe. This government here has made us to be considered as useless people. This government here took out the good things that Zimbabwean people had. This government never look after its people. This government, I hate it. This government, I hate it. I hate this government. And I hate this government here. This government has caused so many deaths. This government has caused so many divorces. This government here has caused so many street kids around the world. This government has caused me to talk about this. Comment, like and subscribe to my channel.